Hey everyone, and happy holidays. It's Kendall.
And Josh from Mile Higher Media.
And as many of you guys know, we just recently launched our foundation, the Higher Hope Foundation. And now we are about to launch our annual matching program for the holiday season. So it's a great time to get involved, to give back, because your gift can go twice as far.
Thanks to all of your support thus far. We've already awarded several grants. We have several more in process, and we've got several exciting projects coming in 2025.
So if you are interested in getting involved and allowing us to do even more projects in the future, it is easier than ever to make a donation. You can do it right on our website, which is higherhope.org. And we've launched a new feature where you can create your own fundraiser. And you can access that by going to the Get Involved tab on our website.
So if you want your gift to be doubled right now through December 27th, Mile Higher Media will be matching all gifts.
And just as a reminder, 100% of your donations will go directly towards impacting victims of violent crime.
We just want to say a huge thank you in advance to everyone out there for all of your support, your generosity. And there's lots of other ways to help support the foundation. If you're not able to give a gift, just sharing our campaigns, the work that we're doing just helps get the word out and, helps us further our mission.
Yeah, truly, because of all of your support, so many people are getting the vital services and help that they need. And we're very, very grateful for your continued support. So thank you.
Light out, everybody.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm your host, Austin.
And I'm the producer, Daniel.
And we are back with another one for you today. One that is pretty disturbing and sad.
Yeah, a few sad ones in here, so just a forewarning on that.
We're going to be covering some real-life horror stories that kind of might play on some of your phobias out there.
I know, I have, we have the luxury of kind of picking.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of these hit close to home. For my personal fears.
Definitely. Fear of heights, claustrophobia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm claustrophobic to some extent.
Yeah. I can't we'll cover some cave diving, and
Dude,
that's like my biggest.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm good. And this one is underwater cave diving.
No thanks.
Yeah, that's like I don't ever want to be I don't want to be over like 100 feet underwater anywhere, let alone inside a cave system. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too. I'm definitely good. But yeah, some of these will definitely have you hugging your loved ones for sure, because it's just, some real tragedies here. But before we get into the episode, I wanted to let everybody know that we are, winding down for the year. Actually, we only have a few more weeks before Lights Out goes on its annual sort of holiday break. We take 2 weeks off kind of at the end of the year into the beginning, over Christmas, New Year's. So yeah, only a couple more episodes left of 2024.
Yeah.
What a year it's been.
What a year.
It's just been so many great things going on. And then also we have our paranormal investigation, The Mansion film coming out. I will be dropping a date for that, but I'm pretty sure that'll be going up the week before last of December. I will have a for sure date for you by next week, but I'm excited for you all to see that finally. I know we've been teasing that for months now, and we've just been kind of sitting on it, kind of waiting for the right time to put that out, but that will be coming out once we're done with the show for the holidays, and that'll kind of hold you over until we come back in January, which is pretty exciting. So absolutely great.
Yeah, we got to see a cut of it already, and yeah, Daniel and Tom did a great job editing down because we had a ton of footage. So
yeah, it was quite the beast to work through and not make it 3 hours of just Austin and I screaming and bullshitting the entire time. But I think you'll really enjoy it.
We do enough of that.
We do that every week. So, but yeah, we are, winding the year down. The YouTube channel's been growing like crazy. So thank you to all of you out there. I think we're at 496. So we're just a few thousand away. Our goal was that 500,000 mark before the end of the year. So if you're not subscribed, check real quick. Or maybe you listen or watch over on Spotify, pop over on YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. But just been loving all the feedback. The show's been in the top 10 for true crime
Yeah, that's
which is
so
crazy.
to me.
And we don't even do true crime all the time,
No.
which is crazy.
I always forget. I don't know. It's a good reminder. I just really forget. It feels like just us, it's just 3 dudes in a studio, and I forget all you guys are out there sometimes. So shout out to the fans.
Shout out to the fans. We're extremely thankful for all of you. It's just been so much fun to do this show this year. And, we're already starting to plan out next year and what we want to do and who we want to bring on. I mean, there's so many cool things we want to do. So thank you, and we hope that you had a, great holiday. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, if you're from the US, I'm still kind of recovering from all the food that I ate last week.
I've become
feel a little heavy.
I've become a carbohydrate because I've eaten so many.
Dude, I ate so much meat. It's like insane.
Did you? Yeah.
I had way too much steak, way too much fish. I kind of ditched the turkey this year because I was down in Florida seeing some family and ate just a bunch of swordfish and grouper. And, it was so good though.
That sounds
I
delicious.
didn't miss the turkey this year. I was like,
fresh fish. You've become a protein.
I am a protein.
With your omega fatty omega-6, and I've become a noodle.
But let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. This first story, we all love hiking, or most of us do. Some of us don't like hiking, but I love hiking when I have time for it. And a place that I've always wanted to go to that I haven't been is Yosemite National Park.
Same.
Half Dome looks incredible, looks beautiful, and people actually hike to the top of Half Dome, although it's kind of hard to do these days, it seems like.
Yeah.
But our first story begins on July 13th, 2024, when a heavy rainstorm approached Yosemite National Park. Arizona State University student Grace Roloff and her father Jonathan were on their way to ascend the Half Dome at Yosemite. 20-year-old Grace was known as an intelligent, selfless human being. She was a role model to her 2 younger siblings, Jonathan and Faith. At Valley Lutheran High School, she excelled in her classes, and in college, at Arizona State University, she took extra classes each semester in order to graduate early and start her career as a math teacher, and she had plans to student teach in the fall. In the meantime, she worked as an aide for a girl with Down syndrome during the day and as a barista at Dutch Bros at night. And on top of all of this, she was known as an adventurer and top-notch athlete. She was 6 feet tall and incredibly strong. She could leg press 600 pounds, which is more than I can do.
Same.
That is an insane amount of weight. And she even set her school record for throwing the javelin. She participated in track and field and played power forward on high school and elite basketball teams, including an Under Armour team that traveled the country. So here's a clip of Jonathan, her father, talking about his daughter.
She was just a child that just did everything and got everything done. She would set goals and get it done, whether academically she was a salutatorian in her high school. Athletically, she lettered in 13 varsity sports. And in the meantime, she was a great friend to her friends. She worked full-time jobs. She wanted to save up and buy a house. She had so many life goals and hiking Half Dome was one of them. And that was one of her bucket list items. And then in amongst working hard and wanting to reach her goals, she always took time to hike and exercise and have fun. We'd lift weights together and go hiking together just about every day.
So as you can tell from that clip, Grace and her father, Jonathan, extremely close, spent a ton of time together. They're really the quintessential father-daughter duo. They had hiked countless times together. Jonathan estimated that they had hiked over 1,000 miles together, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Hitting some of the most popular views in the entire United States, including Angel's Landing in Zion National Park, all the way down to the Grand Canyon, and all over the mountains across their home state of Arizona. So through a lottery system, Grace finally got her hands on a permit to hike Half Dome on July 13th. They had tried to get in countless times before, but they never got picked. So they were super excited when they finally were able to go hike Half Dome. They cleared their schedules and made the drive from Phoenix to Yosemite, and on the morning of, they began the 16-mile hike around 8 a.m. A ranger had warned them about storms approaching the area, which are known to cause incredibly dangerous conditions on Half Dome. Occasionally, both Grace and Jonathan noticed clouds passing by, but at times the day was perfectly clear and sunny. And if you've ever gone hiking in the mountains, you know that weather can change on a dime. I mean, you might seem like a beautiful, clear day, and then all of a sudden a storm can move in, like literally within minutes. I mean,
I was out in Telluride. It was perfectly bright out, and then we were maybe halfway through the trail. All of a sudden, it's pouring rain.
Yeah, and if you've never seen Half Dome, it's a giant rock, basically a giant boulder, mountaintop. But there's no trees. It's very steep, and it's incredibly dangerous to climb it.
Yeah, it's a huge piece of granite, essentially. Yeah, and for our listeners, it's called Half Dome because it looks like a half dome. There's kind of a sheer drop on one side and then a rounded side on the other end. But yeah, incredibly steep.
So their total hike was a 16-mile round trip with a total elevation gain of 4,800 feet. It's known for its beautiful views, including Vernal and Nevada Falls, Liberty Cap, Half Dome, and from the shoulder and summit, panoramic views of Yosemite Valley and the High Sierra. I think Apple, when they came out with Yosemite OS, they had a big picture on the background of Half Dome.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
The hike typically takes a full day, about 10 to 12 hours, so hikers generally want to plan on returning before sunset. I mean, you definitely don't want to be traversing Half Dome after dark. Guides recommended turning around if you hadn't reached the summit by 3:30 p.m. So there is a time constraint for this hike, which could push hikers harder than normal. And the cables that lead to the summit have become notoriously difficult at times. They literally had to put in these metal rods basically into the side of this mountain with these metal cables leading up. It's kind of created like a walkway and a place to because it's so steep. You're just going up the side of this cliff, basically.
And then basically like every few steps, they have a wooden plank near where the poles are in to kind of help you get your footing. But there are just places where it's just the sleek granite, basically. Right. And it's also kind of at an angle at times. Like you're not even walking up a level incline. It's kind of your like sideways incline, which makes it even harder.
Even the National Park Service website calls the cables infamous. A set of 2 metal cables allows hikers to climb the last 400 feet to the summit without rock climbing equipment. And undoubtedly, the worst moment to climb Half Dome is when it's raining because the granite becomes incredibly slick. Since 1919, when the cables were first installed, there have been at least 25 confirmed deaths at this section of the trail, and many have died from falling. But in one tragic incident, 5 hikers were struck by lightning in 1985, which resulted in 2 deaths. Because again, there's nothing up there. I mean, you're the tallest thing on this mountain.
In the area, yeah.
As for Grace and Jonathan, when they reached the very bottom of the cables at Half Dome, the sky was bright blue and perfectly sunny, and the granite was dry. They were ideal conditions to hike the famous Half Dome. So they headed up along with a few other hikers, and they were able to reach the top and experience the beautiful panoramic views of Yosemite Valley and the High Sierra. Jonathan took a few photos of his daughter Grace because she was so happy she had finally completed one of her bucket list goals, and she told her father that she loved him. Moments later, booming thunder was heard, which alarmed everybody at the summit, and Jonathan watched as a black cloud rolled in. He said, quote, like gangbusters. He said, quote, I was like, we have to get down now because we don't want to be up here with any rain. It rolled in literally out of nowhere. Grace and Jonathan were experienced athletic hikers, and if they wanted to, they could have raced to the bottom of the cables in a matter of minutes to beat the rain. But the problem was that some of the more inexperienced hikers were taking the cables at a snail's pace. Jonathan and Grace wanted to be polite, so they kept behind the slower hikers. But as rain began to fall, the slow hikers became even slower, causing a massive traffic jam along the cables. And soon enough, they were all trapped along the cables as a massive downpour overtook the Half Dome. The granite became extremely wet and slick, and the granite between the cables is far more slick because so many people have walked along the path that they've worn the rock down to a smooth surface. So it's almost like glass, once it becomes wet. Jonathan described it as a granite countertop. Grace wore a new pair of hiking shoes meant for good traction, but they didn't hold up. On their slow descent, Grace slipped several times and complained to her father about her shoes being too slippery. Jonathan tried to calm her, saying that they would take it slow and one step at a time. He thought that they were taking the necessary precautions to reach the bottom safely, and they had made it nearly 75% of the way down the cables, and they entered the home stretch when both of Grace's feet slid out from under her. Her father described the exact moment, saying, quote, "She just slid off to the side right by me down the mountain. It happened so fast, I tried to reach my hand up, but she was already gone." Grace slid about 250 feet down the slick granite of Half Dome, which again is incredibly steep. Jonathan watched her come to a stop and thought she was possibly still alive. He then descended the last section of cables as fast as he possibly could, which I can't even imagine what was running through his mind at this point, just the sheer terror of everything that just happened. At the bottom, he looked over the edge and realized that the mountain was far too steep. From up at the cables on the Half Dome, the curves of the sloping granite created this optical illusion. The view from the cables made it seem like the fall wasn't as drastic or as far as it really was. But as he looked at the steep decline from the bottom of the cables, he realized that there was no possible way he could reach Grace where she had landed. So he just started screaming at the other hikers for someone to call 911, but no one reacted. So he called emergency services himself. Meanwhile, he also yelled out to his daughter over and over again, and he screamed, "Grace, I'm here. I'm not going to leave you. If you can hear my voice, give me a sign. I love you." Helpless, as he waited for emergency services to arrive, he dropped to his knees and began praying for a miracle to save his daughter. A few others approached him and asked if they could join him. Erin McGlynn, a 22-year-old from Las Vegas, had just hiked up the trail with her mother and returned to the bottom of the cables. She then noticed Jonathan saying, quote, "It was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen, but it was also one of the bravest things I've ever seen. He was able to compose himself just in case he could provide any comfort to her. He did everything he possibly could have." Meanwhile, park ranger Shauna Daly also provided support to Jonathan. Realizing that there was no way to reach Grace on foot, she stayed with Jonathan, waiting for 3 hours until an emergency helicopter and rescue climbers could reach Grace. They waded through the violent storm, the fierce wind, pouring rain, and even through ping-pong ball-sized hail. Jonathan said, quote, "I know that's her job, but she went way above and beyond to make a human connection with me," which really meant a lot to him, especially in that moment. By the time rescuers reached Grace, they confirmed that she had already died. A coroner later confirmed she had died from a severe head fracture and likely died during the fall. Jonathan said, quote, "That was at least comforting. If she was gone, then she didn't have to suffer." Trying to make sense of what had just happened, Jonathan said, quote, "I believe that God was calling her home, and I believe that there will be reasons for her death that will be revealed to us. Grace was such a beautiful soul, and she deserves to have her story told." After the funeral service, Grace's parents hoped that the park could retrieve and return her backpack with all the photos she took. The backpack had gotten separated from her during the fall and stopped about 100 feet from the cables. Yosemite officials have not responded to this question about whether or not they can get the backpack. Park officials also did not issue a statement about the death and declined to comment, which is kind of weird. It's just, you always wonder, is it like they don't want to acknowledge that this stuff happens for tourism reasons? I don't know. It's all very weird. Here at Lights Out, we are huge pet lovers. All of us have pets that we love dearly. I've got 10 pets actually, including 3 cats that I just can't get enough of. They're just so funny. They always are doing crazy stuff at the house, jumping around, tearing stuff up. And one of my cats has basically like cat IBS, and so he's got a very sensitive stomach. And for many years, I was feeding him that canned cat food because it seemed like that was the only cat food that he would eat. And he was just constantly throwing up, having digestive issues. And so my vet was like, maybe you should look at some better quality food out there. And thanks to our sponsor, Smalls, I was able to get him started on some protein-packed cat food that doesn't smell like shit and food that he absolutely loves. So Smalls cat food is truly the best cat food out there on the market. My cats absolutely go crazy for it whenever I break it out, and it doesn't smell or look like crap. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients that you find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your front door. Cats.com actually named Smalls their best overall cat food. And they have a bunch of different blends, flavors. My cats aren't really into the fish blends for some reason, but they love the poultry blends. Plus, Smalls works with the Humane Society, which we love, and they've donated over $1 million worth of food to help cats. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements, which is a big deal. I know my cat Tucker, who's got the digestive issues, he's keeping the food down. He's actually gaining a little bit of weight. He's always been a smaller cat, but he just seems healthier than he's ever been before. And so, huge thank you to Smalls for making some good quality cat food that my cats love. Smalls has a sampler pack, which is great to kind of have your cat try a bunch of different recipes to see what they like. And the team at Smalls is so confident that your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So give your cat the gift of great cat food this holiday season. You shouldn't be the only one eating good. Head to smalls.com/lightsout to use promo code lightsout at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer that you'll find out there, but you have to use our code lightsout for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code lightsout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. In 2010, the National Park Service took action, though, to prevent overcrowding, which was thought to cause accidents exactly like this one. It instituted a 300-person per day limit on the summit of Half Dome and required hikers to apply for daily permits through the lottery system. But apparently, this didn't help. A 2018 wilderness and environmental medicine study showed that after the permit system went into effect, the number of incidents per person doubled.
This fascinates me, this research, because you would think, oh, we're limiting the amount of people who can go. We're limiting the amount of people who can even go up Half Dome. So in theory, shouldn't that stop what has happened?
Or is it creating, the scarcity anxiety?
Right.
Like, this is my only chance. I got to make it up there because I'm not going to get another chance.
Yep.
So yeah, the theory is that since it has become so difficult to obtain a permit, it makes more people want to reach the summit since it would likely be their only chance. And on top of this, the park does not issue refunds or allow the permits to be transferred or prioritize permit holders who couldn't visit due to storms in future lotteries. So this means that hikers are possibly even more incentivized to climb the Half Dome, even in bad weather or when it's more dangerous.
So completely backfired, right?
You would think that they would think this through a little bit.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, if we do that, then it's just people are going to push
your one shot.
Push it,
yeah. And so like, I don't know if a ranger warns you like, hey, the weather's not going to be great today. It's like, well, my dad and I have been waiting to do this hike for so long. We're finally getting it through the lottery system. So it's like a complete gamble to even be allowed to be there. And it's a bucket list goal. So it's like, yeah, of course you're going to go up there. Like I would do it. It's this whole idea that we're like limiting people is just not actually working out.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to what they've done with Mount Everest too.
Yeah.
They've limited the number of people that can actually summit Mount Everest per day.
Yeah.
For the same reasons that the overcrowding created accidents and deaths. But at the same token, does it actually fix the issue?
Right.
Which I don't know if there's a much better solution. I don't know if there's a way to make it safer, or maybe you look at building out those lottery systems so that people can take a rain check and,
right. Yeah,
do it a different day.
refunds.
Why not do that? It's so weird. I get there's probably an insane amount of people that want to summit Half Dome, but let's think about people's lives first. I mean, people can wait. If they got to wait another year or whatever, 6 months to do it when it's safe. Then
I don't get why you can't get a rain check for something like this. I got a rain check for whale watching, like on the East Coast. You'd think that they'd rain check me for Half Dome, right?
Well, I think, I've used because a lot of like Rocky Mountain National Park, it's all timed entry now.
Yep.
They don't let unlimited people into the parks every day. And so you have to jump on there. It's kind of it's like getting concert tickets now.
It's why I haven't even gone yet. Even though I moved here, I was like, "Oh, I should go to the
National
Park."
You haven't even gone to Rocky Mountain.
Like, how? It's just sounds like a pain in the ass to get in there.
And I get it because like one of the reasons is conservation, and
for sure
all these people come in and the parks get destroyed. I don't know. It's kind of a complicated issue.
It is. Yeah, I think we're just seeing that this might not be the answer to the issue.
And it's probably a funding problem. You know, their technology is limited. I've used the timed entry system, and it was a very jank, you know, like your local, you know, restaurant has a better reservation system than what the national parks do for as far as the technology stack goes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's why we need to fund our national
More
parks.
funding. Yeah.
You know, they need more technology to be able to be better equipped to handle these types of situations. But
yeah. I always say the two things that our government does right by far, our library system, I love the library, and our parks. Those are the two things I will always back.
Let's
no
hope they
matter
stay
what.
funded.
Yeah, right.
Because I mean, yeah, if you take the funding away from it, who knows if they'll even be around,
Right.
or just be absolutely destroyed.
Yep.
Some, including Jonathan, have also pointed out that the cable system that they have up there right now is a problem. He suggests that it should be more like a drawbridge with wooden planks close enough to step from one to the next, and have planks running up the sides beneath the cables to catch anyone who slips, which
This is super smart, in my opinion.
seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. And wouldn't actually cost that much either to just, so if you, for listeners, you know, the wood planks that are currently set up, it's like a few steps to the next one, but they're really good if you need to get your footing. So if you just had one where it was like every single step, you could actually plant your foot on a wood plank. Yeah, it makes sense. And then to catch somebody on the kind of the cattywamped sections where it's not straight up and down, you know, it's a bit slanted. Yeah, just have a system that could maybe catch someone if they slip.
almost creating like a chute
Right.
in a way where you could have like planks kind of in the middle there to stop people if they did start slipping. But that way they're not slipping off the sides. Because right now it's just two cables at kind of like waist level.
Maybe like 2 or 3 feet high.
Right. So if you fall and you start slipping, you're just going right off the edge.
Exactly.
It's very, very steep.
Yeah.
I mean, my only thought to that is like maybe they're like the amount of maintenance. Again, it's probably funding the amount of maintenance to replace those wood planks if they break, if they get weather. But I'm like, why don't they use those Trex, that people use for their decks? So instead of, that's kind of like a more of a composite wood that can withstand weather and hail.
Yeah, it's like a PVC.
It's got some sort of other composite materials on it that make it weatherproof.
Yep.
And more, just last longer.
It'll stay there forever.
Again, it's probably a funding thing to fund basically a Trex walkway all the way up to the summit. Probably cost a lot of money, but it's like, I mean,
if it can save one person's life, I think you should do it.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
They also could install another row of cables closer to the ground for the same reason. So if you do fall, you can have something grab onto, right? It's kind of strange that they didn't think of that before. Jonathan said, quote, "This is my first time and my last time doing Half Dome because it is unnecessarily dangerous up there." And many agree with him for more reasons than one. But as for his daughter's legacy, here are some of Jonathan's thoughts. And, I feel for him. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible accident that didn't need to happen if some of these things had been put in place.
Yeah. And we will also, we'll link the giveandkind.com they have if you want to donate to, I believe it connects to her high school, an endowment fund.
Yeah, there's a couple different organizations that he's raising money for in her memory.
So we'll link that in the YouTube description.
Grace left her legacy, so it's really not about how I want her legacy. She left a legacy of love, and she multiplied her blessings that she was given on so many people. She was such a smart girl, great athlete, caring human being. She left a legacy on so many people that it's not about my narrative, it's about how she lived her life. And she was able to share that with so many people. And, she was a star on most of the sports teams that she was on, but every single person on that team felt like they were just as important as Grace. That's how she made people feel. And even in this time of loss, so many people are devastated, but grief is a way to share compassion and love with one another. And so all the people that are grieving have rallied together, and it's their way of showing the compassion and love that Grace shared with them. So it's her narrative that she left on life is that of compassion and love.
Yeah, well said.
I mean, he just seems like he's obviously grieving the loss of his daughter, but to, the strength that he's showing even in this interview to, make sure that her, she's always remembered and, furthering this message, and doing what you love, like that's ultimately what she was doing
For sure.
and remembering all the good times. And the strength that he's showing is just incredible.
Yeah. And
Seem like really, really cool people.
Yeah. And hopefully we're honoring her memory and what the family would wish for as well here. 'Cause like he said, her story should be told, and it's important to tell her narrative. Sounds like she was just a stand-up person overall. So yeah, and kind of an inspiration for everyone who knew her.
This next story, though,
This is
kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because you would never think that this could happen.
Not once. And we'll keep it a little bit of a mystery because it makes no sense.
No.
And I think some of the scariest things in life are ones that you don't even realize you should be scared of. Super unsuspecting
kind
things.
of silent killers.
Yeah.
That we all have in our houses.
It's a very common thing. Yeah. So on August 23rd, 2013, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, this is a Russian last name, I believe, Chalusheva family lived in the small town of Lyashevo near Kazan in the Russian Republic of Tatarstan.
Sounds
Hope I got all that
pretty legit to me.
Right. So the youngest of the family was 8-year-old Maria. She was sitting at the kitchen table waiting patiently as her father was prepping some food to cook some dinner. Her father, who is a well-respected law professor, 42-year-old Mikhail, was across the kitchen chopping up some onions. When he finished chopping the onions, he realized he needed some potatoes, and they often stored their potatoes in the basement, which also acted kind of as a root cellar. This was beneath their garage, and they would do it through the winter to keep these vegetables from going bad. But in August, nearly the whole summer had passed. So
the idea is it's a cooler place
Yep.
to keep, vegetables and produce and stuff.
And in the winter, it stays really cold, so they can last a lot longer. So Mikhail dumped the onions into a hot pan to saute them before heading down to the basement to fetch some potatoes. The basement door was at the end of a hallway that led into a basement beneath the garage. So he headed down and he closed the door behind him as he always did. I think there was a rule that you just always keep that basement door closed for whatever reason. I don't know if our root cellars, do you have to keep doors closed for root cellars? Is that how that is? I'm not exactly sure.
Maybe it's just to keep the heat in the house.
That might
and
be
keep
it.
like the cool draft from coming out from the cellar.
I think that's probably it. So he headed down as he always did, and after a few minutes, Maria complained of the smoke coming from the frying pan because the onions had started to burn. So Maria's grandmother, 68-year-old Iraida, came in to remove the onions from the heat and fan out the smoke. Maria's mother, Anastasia, also entered the kitchen. She found it odd that her husband wasn't there. Where'd he go? He headed into the basement, but they were a bit confused, so she went to check on him down in the basement. So she also walked down the hall, entered the basement stairwell to look for Mikhail, and closed the door behind her. Meanwhile, Iraida picked through the burned onions to see if she could salvage any, and Maria returned to, she was just sitting at the table, possibly drawing a horse. So as moments passed, both of them found it odd that now Mikhail and Anastasia had not returned from the basement. They also found it odd that it was completely silent down there. So finally, Iraida shuffled over to the basement door, and she saw Maria's brother, 18-year-old Georgie, come over as well. So, I mean, just like imagine it.
Yeah, they just
like,
went down to get
what's
some
going on?
potatoes.
And then they're
real quick.
not coming up, and it's silent. So I would almost think, like, is this a little prank that's going on? That's what I would kind of suspect.
Or like, did they like tell each other, like, let's go down the cellar, have like a private moment for a second?
Yeah,
Just, I want to talk to you about something.
Right. Maybe something serious. Yeah. So Iraida then opened the basement door and called down to Mikhail and Anastasia asking, is everything all right down there? But there was complete silence in the basement. After some hesitation, Georgie then figured, hey, look, I'll go down and check for my parents. I don't know what the hell's going on. So he headed into the basement and, as always, closed the door behind him. Only Maria and her grandmother remained on the first floor. And once Georgie's footsteps from the stairs kind of disappeared into the basement, there was just silence again. I don't know what's going on. And they couldn't see beyond the landing at the bottom of the stairs further into the basement. So it was just a big question of what was going on. This was when Maria and Iraida began to panic. So her grandmother called a neighbor and asked if they could come over to check on things. But instead of waiting until the neighbor arrived, Iraida grew a bit impatient and she headed into the basement just to see what was going on. Maria listened to her grandmother's footsteps descend into the basement, but this time she actually left the basement door open. So Maria could hear her grandmother kind of shuffling through the basement before hearing her collapse to the ground. Maria approached the landing at the top of the stairs and looked into the dark basement. She was a bit too afraid to go down alone, but eventually she just got up the courage to head down there by herself. A few minutes later, the neighbor that they had called finally arrived and knocked on the front door. No one answered, so the neighbor let himself in. The house was completely quiet, and the first floor was completely empty. The first thing he heard was Maria's crying, and it sounded like she was down in the basement. Once the neighbor got down the stairs into the basement, he discovered a horrific scene. He found Maria sobbing uncontrollably, and she was surrounded by the deceased bodies of her entire household. So obviously, they called police, and after police arrived and inspected the basement, it's commonly believed that each of her family members had died from some sort of toxic gas poisoning that had accumulated in the basement over time, possibly for months.
Wow.
And the source, they theorized that the source of these gases were from badly rotting potatoes.
Whoa.
Isn't that insane? And the only reason Maria hadn't died when she went down there was because
left that door open so some fresh air could get in there.
Yep. So her grandma had left it open because it was obviously the rule to keep that door closed. But when it was left open, it just allowed those toxic fumes to
build
disperse.
up.
Yeah. So typically the basement door was always kept closed. Yeah. Which is what sealed
them in. Yeah.
Exactly. Many sources point to the fact that potatoes contain toxic compounds known as, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, glycoalkaloids. One of the most prevalent in potatoes is solanine, and solanine is also found in plants such as deadly nightshade, tobacco, eggplants, tomatoes. You might have heard of nightshade being used as like poison. It was, I think, featured in The Nightmare Before Christmas and Game of Thrones. You see it as kind of like an old-fashioned poison, but supposedly, yeah, this active ingredient is solanine in it that can poison people. So how this works in theory is that the toxic affects the nervous system, causing weakness and confusion, and these glycoalkaloids can cause headaches, diarrhea, cramps, and in severe cases, death. Even though poisoning from potatoes is extremely rare, it was believed that these toxic gases had been releasing and accumulating in that basement for months. But typically it's advised to store potatoes in a cool and dark place, specifically in a basement or a root cellar, to keep them from going bad, which is what the family did through the winter. It was completely normal. But strange enough, so this gets even weirder. This wouldn't be the first case of people having adverse or fatal reactions to bad potatoes. You'd think something as unsuspecting as a vegetable would just, okay, whatever, it's rotting or anything.
Yeah, well, it's so weird because I've had bags of potatoes that I put in my pantry and forgotten about.
Same.
And they don't exactly rot. Maybe I haven't left them in there for like 6 months or a year, but usually they start like sprouting.
Yep, they get green.
They
get those
they start
weird,
sprouting.
Yeah, which
But
supposedly that's like you
the
don't want to
beginning?
eat a sprouting
Yeah.
potato. If it gets too bad, that's when it's really gone.
Oh man, I wonder if I've ever eaten potatoes like that.
They say you can
I
just
cut them off.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can just
eat
cut
the-
off the sprouts and you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But this is like, months and months passing. Also, who knows how long those specific potatoes had actually been down there? We could be talking like years. Who actually knows, right?
Danny, what's the shelf life on potatoes?
Yeah,
It depends on how you store them.
right.
So
So do they stay better in like a refrigerator? Is that
they stay better in a cool or dry location. You normally don't want to put potatoes in the fridge. There's a lot of actually vegetables that you don't want to put in the fridge. Like,
Because the moisture.
yeah. And the cold, like you don't put bananas in the fridge. They'll be damaged. And
Right.
a lot of nightshades actually you don't want to put in the fridge, like tomatoes, potatoes, other things like that. Chili
Yeah.
peppers.
So that's why people have the root cellars, I'm
Mhm.
assuming.
Cool and dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so uncooked potatoes can last 1 to 2 weeks at room temperature, or 2 to 3 months if stored in a cool, dark, or dry place like a pantry.
2 to 3 months. Yeah. So we're probably way beyond
This must have been like
I'd be
From
willing to bet it's like a year or so.
a year or so.
Yeah.
Probably from the year
through the winter.
harvest. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Prior.
all the way through summer.
Yeah, and like you said, storing potatoes in the fridge can cause a starch to convert to sugar,
Mhm.
Hmm.
resulting in sweeter taste and discoloration when cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's better to blanch the potatoes before refrigerating or freezing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good old blanching.
But yeah, you can tell that they've gone bad from green or dark areas of the skin, a musty odor, many lengthy sprouts.
Maybe my assumption too is over the winter, there might have been some, when everything defrosted, there might have been some water that leaked into the root cellar and introduced some moisture in there.
Yep. There is a bit of a theory.
I was going to say there's got to be some other element to this.
There's a bit more. So like often if you look up this case, everyone's like, oh, it's the solanine. But bear with me, we will get into it. It's actually possibly a bit more trickier than that, which is weird. I never thought like potatoes would have such a weird complexity. This episode is brought to you by Naked Wines. I love wine. I'm not quite a wine snob, not sure if I want to get there yet. Maybe someday, maybe when I'm a little older, get more gray in my hair. But Naked Wines, it's great. I love it. You ever go to the wine store and you're just like, there's 8 million options. Where do I begin? So Naked Wines, it kind of curates it for you. And it's great. It's a subscription service that directly connects you to the world's finest independent winemakers. So even you uncultured swine at home, if you want to get into wine, you can get these award-winning wines delivered straight to your door. And you just got to use my code LIGHTSOUT. You can get 6 bottles for just $39.99. It's a great price for 6 bottles of wine. It's also great for those special occasions. And the holidays are coming up. What better way to celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you choose than with a nice bottle of wine? Because you know what? Christ's first miracle was bringing wine to a party. Never forget that. And wine's always perfect to share. You might crack a beer by yourself or at a party, but a nice bottle of wine, it's romantic. You get the candles going. You got that special someone in your life to share it with. It's a wonderful experience. And Naked Wines, they've been around for 15 years, and they fund over 90 independent winemakers around the world. Plus, it's a subscription, but you can pause it or cancel it at any time. So just because you've got a trip coming up or something like that, doesn't mean you can't keep enjoying Naked Wines whenever you want. So now is the time to join the Naked Wines community. Head to nakedwines.com/lightsout and put in our code LIGHTSOUT for both the code and password for 6 bottles of wine for just $39.99 with shipping included. That's nakedwines.com/lightsout and code LIGHTSOUT for 6 bottles of wine for just $39.99. Yeah, this wouldn't be the first time. I mean, there is a whole rabbit hole of people being poisoned by potatoes. In 1918, 61 people in 18 households fell ill in Glasgow, Scotland from eating bad potatoes. A 5-year-old boy actually died from asphyxiation from his own vomit the day after. In 1925, a family of 7 fell ill from eating green potatoes. Vomiting, exhaustion, trouble breathing, and loss of consciousness followed. 2 later died, in fact. And in Korea in 1952, whole villages faced famines and were forced to eat rotting potatoes. 382 people were affected in this one area alone. 52 were hospitalized and 22 died. Many ended up dying from heart failure within 24 hours of eating a rotten potato. Others died within 10 days, experiencing irregular pulse, enlarged hearts, and bluing lips.
Holy shit. Who knew?
Yeah, do not eat rotting potatoes.
God.
This goes on. In 1979, in a South London boys' school, 78 students and a number of staff also fell ill after eating rotten potatoes that were saved from the previous summer, put in the school's automatic peeling machine, cooked, and then served to the students. They complained of abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and in severe cases, depression of the central nervous system. And this can affect involuntary bodily processes like your heartbeat, breathing, even blinking. It can also cause memory loss, slowed heart rate, and slowed breathing. Some students fell into comas and suffered episodes of violent twitching. So, clearly potatoes can be incredibly dangerous after their shelf life is over. But some have questioned, like I was saying earlier, this popular theory of the solanine being the cause of death in the case of the Chelishevas. Since the melting point of solanine is 520 degrees Fahrenheit, so it wouldn't simply turn into a cloud of gas inside their basement unless it had somehow reached that extreme temperature to get to the gaseous state. It couldn't even reach a gas state at typical cooking temperatures, to put that into perspective. So some have proposed a simpler explanation for what happened that is not solanine gas, but carbon dioxide. So one of the major breakdown products from rotting potatoes and other rotting vegetables is carbon dioxide. And since it's heavier than oxygen, it will displace it when no air is circulated. So the basement, which was this closed off space below ground with limited air exchange, was basically an ideal place for carbon dioxide to kind of pool from the floor up. So the family most likely went down there and they imagined going into like this gaseous pool of carbon dioxide, and then they would die from asphyxiation due to the lack of oxygen. So not by the toxic gases from the solanine.
But why this particular time? They just hadn't gone down in the cellar that long?
I think that was it.
This was the first time that they were like, oh, let's make this meal. We need some potatoes. Let's go down to the root cellar.
It gets weirder the more you think about it too. And like, I'm not even claiming that this is the answer. These are just the theories that are proposed. Generally, it's understood that the potatoes somehow killed this family, but I don't even know. But apparently at high concentrations, carbon dioxide leads to an increased respiratory rate, tachycardia, cardiac arrhythmias, and impaired consciousness. Concentrations more than 10% may cause convulsions, coma, and death. So we can assume that that concentration was very high down there for them to just go down and then drop almost immediately, very quickly, right? And if it's warmed rapidly, large amounts of carbon dioxide are generated, which can be extremely dangerous, particularly within confined areas like this small root cellar.
And my guess
basement.
is that this must be like an airtight root cellar.
That's what I'm guessing.
Because otherwise, if you just think about it, you're like, well, wouldn't there be a crack under the door for that carbon dioxide to escape from?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at something that has zero ventilation. And it was just
airtight.
Slowly, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So another theory, which is kind of what Daniel was pointing out, that if the potatoes were wet enough and packed tightly in a bin with little to no drainage, they could also generate this very smelly, anaerobic, volatile organic compounds, or even hydrogen gas, which is also toxic to humans. Either way, it's generally accepted that the severely rotting potatoes were the cause of these deaths, but there's no consensus on which particular gases killed them.
Yeah, we weren't able to find like an autopsy report or toxicology report or if they even did one.
Right. Who even
Maybe
knows?
They just went in there and like, well, it's the potatoes.
Yeah. Open and shut.
Because that would probably give us a lot more information on like what chemical was detected, but
right.
Or compound. Yeah.
And this is also, keep in mind, this is in the middle of nowhere.
Russia. Yeah.
So In the end, it was very sad. Maria was left orphaned and her whole immediate family, including her maternal grandmother, had died. Since her father was a respected law professor, a special memorial service was held for him in the Marble Hall of Kazan Federal University, and that's where he was the head of the Department of Civil and Business Law. It was last reported that Maria was, as you can imagine, inconsolable after the loss of her family, and luckily, other distant relatives took her in and cared for her, and she would be about 19 years old today. So yeah, just as a PSA, if you're worried about your potatoes,
they look bad, they're probably bad.
Right. The
Just throw 'em
easiest
out.
way to check is if they're bad is cut into them, check for, green discoloration, the long sprouts, things like that. And don't store them in places that are completely unventilated as well.
I wonder, the other thing that came to my mind was mold.
Mm.
Could there have been some type of mold growth in this cellar? Like you said, if water had somehow gotten into the cellar, mold would have quickly taken over. And I mean, you don't
Yeah.
always see mold growth.
Doesn't
it's a
mold
dark
kill you
cellar.
like kind of slowly though? Because they kind of
True.
went down in that basement and
So it
Until
kind of
immediately.
implies that it was something that hit their lungs,
very
hit
toxic.
the system really quickly versus
Yeah.
mold kind of needs prolonged exposure to it.
Right.
Or maybe it just seems like this was kind of multiple factors potentially all in
Yeah.
one. It just was like, because to go down there when within seems like seconds, close the door behind you and then you're unconscious on
it.
the ground dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's wild.
that's insane.
Yeah.
That's just,
That's
Yeah,
I think
you don't hear
it's-
about that.
I think it's carbon dioxide asphyxiation because that can happen a little over a minute. So
is
that would
it?
make sense. Yeah.
And I mean, if you're going down there, you struggle breathing and then you collapse, even if you're not dead, you're down there with, it's higher concentration the lower you are. So
yeah, it's too bad we don't know more because they could have taken blood samples from family members because you're able to determine how much carbon dioxide
was in the
was in their
bloodstream.
blood
Oh yeah.
at the time of their death. And you would think that they would have like wanted to nail that down, but I guess things work a little differently over there. But yeah, that's
Crazy story.
Yeah, that's nuts. I throw out my potatoes every time, man.
Yeah.
Which sucks because I hate
Food waste.
food waste
Same,
for sure.
yeah.
And I'm like, could I take the potatoes and like throw them out into the field
Compost
and
them or
let
something.
let the animals outside eat them, or would that
Mm.
poison the animals
I
too?
think it would be probably toxic to the
Oh,
animals
damn.
too. Yeah.
Nightshades are toxic to some animals like cats too. So if there's any wild animals, like a wild neighborhood cat eats a potato, it could die.
All right,
Man.
well, won't do that.
What
What about pumpkins? Are pumpkins the same?
I don't know.
If
Now
pumpkins
I'm,
go
now
bad,
I'm
like,
all
what
paranoid.
what
about
other foods?
all
Is
my
it just
vegetables.
these nightshades?
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, the glycoalkaloids. I'm not sure.
But if your tomatoes get moldy, if you cut the mold off of it, it's okay to still eat it, right?
That's what I do. I don't know. Maybe I should
Or is it
stop
bad
doing that.
to, if it's any produce gets moldy, you should just throw it away?
No. What do you do, Daniel? I cut it off and eat the rest of it.
I cut it off. I mean, it's not. If I'm serving it to my grandma, I'm not going to use it. If I'm serving it to people around my age that are, healthy, it's not going to hurt them.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Just cut it off. Keep using it. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, we waste too much food here in the U.S. I
Well,
think
and
it's like 1/3 of all the food in the U.S. we throw out. So I always try and think of that before throwing out.
Well, and we have
food.
places like Costco where you go
Buy in bulk.
and there's such a great deal on potatoes, but it's like 18 pounds of potatoes
I'm not
for your family of four.
I'm not feeding a compound here.
Right,
Like,
right.
I don't need that many potatoes.
I've made that mistake so many times. I'll buy like 2 pounds of potatoes because they're having like a sale at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And then I'll eat 2 of them and then the rest all go bad in my pantry. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
And so now I just buy it individually, just
Yeah.
get 1 or 2.
yeah, that's
I
what
get the
do.
bags of rice from Costco though, like those 50-pound bags of rice.
Does rice ever go bad?
As long as it
it's
stays dry, you're
Get
good.
those weevils.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep it dry. You're good.
I always get those little weevils. in there.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude.
Where
Every
do you
time.
keep your rice?
And then they get in my pans and I'm like, what is
Oh,
this
man.
little
That's protein.
critter?
It's extra protein.
True.
Right?
Cool. I'll just start keeping
Cook it
them in
up.
there.
Yeah. You want some weevil
I
rice?
mean, I assume once I put them in a boiling pot of water, it's not going to hurt me.
No, it'll be fine.
But speaking of water, let's talk about the Blue Hole of Santa Rosa. Beautiful location.
Beautiful.
I'd swim in it.
Same.
I'd maybe dive a foot or two.
A foot or two.
With some goggles.
That's about it.
But you couldn't pay me enough to go diving into the Blue Hole, but tons of people love it. And kudos to the people that can do it. I mean, it looks really cool. It looks like you're entering another world under there.
Yeah.
But
I guess that's kind of the appeal.
Yeah.
Actually, if anybody's out there listening, can you please comment and explain to me why?
Why you do it?
Yes.
Why you
I
cave
don't
dive?
understand cave diving underwater. Seems so foreign to us naturally as humans to want to be down there. I think it's more natural to be in space than it is to be in an underwater cave. So if someone's out there, and I know there are a lot of people who take this as very serious, even profession or hobby, and people are really into it. I cannot wrap my head around it. But if anybody's out there listening, please comment and just let me know what's that inspiration to go down there in like this incredibly dangerous area? Is it adrenaline?
I think it's adrenaline and adventure and going somewhere not a lot of people have gone. It's the same reason people hike Half Dome. Just, people want to do things that other people don't do and want to experience things that people don't typically do, even if it's dangerous and I think a lot of people do it like diving too, because it's this peaceful kind of serene thing. It's so quiet, it's
you're disconnecting.
You're disconnected, and it's like being in outer space because you're somewhere in an unnatural location for a human, and it's very scenic in some areas, I guess, until it gets lights out.
Yeah,
and you're in the dark. I don't understand that part of it.
No. This whole thing with being even caves kind of creep me out a little bit. I mean, I've been in like Carlsbad Cavern and stuff like that, but
where there's an elevator to the top.
Yeah, I know exactly how to leave. Yeah,
but the spelunking, where you're like shimmying your way through little holes in the ground.
I'm good.
I don't think so. I'm not into that.
Yeah,
I mean, and maybe it's because we're the big burly men. It's more difficult for us.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know. I'm not trying to be judgmental if this is your hobby, but I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, this is a story of how things can go terribly, terribly wrong. But if you're not familiar with the Blue Hole of Santa Rosa, it's a circular, bell-shaped pool of water that formed over centuries from a large sinkhole. And it's known for its crystal clear water since it brings groundwater to the surface naturally, making it popular with divers and swimmers because you can just see so well there. It's so clear. In recent years, it's become one of the most popular dive destinations in the US for scuba diving and training. About 84 feet down at the bottom of the Blue Hole, there's a small opening just large enough for a person to fit through. Some divers have claimed that it's so small you have to remove some of your diving gear to fit through. That, to me, is freaky.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, when you got you got a lot of gear on and a lot of things on you that could catch on to, jagged edges in a underground or underwater cave.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But this hole then opens up to a vast network of underwater tunnels known as the Blue Hole Caves. It's believed that many of the deeper caves have not even been mapped, let alone explored yet. So I think that is what people are chasing too, is like, I've been somewhere that no human has ever been. It's like the reason people want to go to space and want to go to other planets.
Yeah, the final frontier. Yeah. Okay.
Or people that climb mountains for the first time. Or,
okay.
To be the first person to ever set foot there, or in thousands and thousands of years. It's kind of it's adrenaline, it's adventure, and it's people's, Buzz Aldrin moment.
Yeah. I get that. Okay. Not putting it that way, I understand it a bit more. Because, yeah, we are kind of just locked in. There's no more exploration on Earth for the most part. We've seen it all. We've discovered everything. But, yeah, I guess underground, subterranean, yeah. Maybe people see it, as this final frontier.
Yeah, maybe
on
you'll be
Earth.
the one that stumbles upon the alien civilization that's down there.
True. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of reasons why. Or maybe you find some treasure or, there's so many
Indiana
different
Jones, yeah.
possibilities are endless.
I get it.
But in 1976, 2 divers from Oklahoma were exploring these deep, uncharted sections of the caves, and they soon got lost and drowned. When police rescue divers try to recover their bodies, they begin getting lost themselves, realizing just how confusing the cave system was. Plus, the fragile rock formations along the cave walls were a constant hazard, and while they were down in the caves, the slightest disturbance would dislodge rocks and cause cave-ins. One room about 17 feet above the cave floor completely collapsed. One diver was struck and nearly trapped by a falling boulder 3 feet in diameter. Each of the cave sections had complex rock structures that were hard to navigate and dangerous to be near. One room had several shafts, cracks, and crevices along the ceiling, and another was called the teepee room, which had a ceiling that looked like thousands of ice cream cones were hanging upside down. Very beautiful,
Yeah.
but also very dangerous if any of those come down.
Mm-hmm.
And the caves, just in general, are also extremely dark. One of the divers was using a 100,000 candle power flashlight. He could see into certain chambers, but he often couldn't see the other side or the bottom, especially the third chamber they discovered. And as rock formations fell, the debris would kick up silt in the water, making it even harder to see. One diver described it as, quote, Carlsbad Cavern, but filled with water and without a light. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Eventually, the police divers were able to recover the bodies of Mike Goddard and David Gregg. David was found near the first section, but Mike was found much, much deeper in the unexplored caves. It took them 6 weeks to find Mike's body, which is nuts. I mean, that's how big these caves are. They go on for miles and miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the search, police warned the landowners that they were incredibly dangerous sections of the caves. Until they hired professionals and got the caves mapped out, police warned the owners that they shouldn't be allowing anyone to dive in the uncharted areas. The city ended up sealing off the hole with a large metal grate bolted into the rock. At the entrance, they dumped 2 truckloads of rock and debris to deter anyone from trying to open the grate or slip inside. In 2013, a diving organization called ADM Exploration Foundation reached out to the owners of the Blue Hole and offered to explore and map out the cave system. They also did this with permission from the city of Santa Rosa. Unfortunately, the boulders and debris prevented them from getting deeper past the entrance to the second room. So they canceled their plans and spent the next 3 years dredging and removing the remaining debris to open up the passages near the entrance. And finally, in March 2016, the ADM team returned for another expedition. They would eventually reach depths of 194 feet, where the source of the water was found filtering up through tons of debris covering the cavern floor. But this excursion would result in tragedy. 10 or so people from the ADM Exploration Foundation arrived at the Blue Hole for a multiple-day exploration that March. One of the divers was 43-year-old Shane Thompson. Shane had been diving from a young age in the Florida Keys, and he later became a diving instructor for the United States Navy before becoming an advanced scuba instructor in San Diego. He had about 20 years of diving experience, and most of his experience came specifically from cave diving, especially for various construction businesses and salvage operations. The previous year, he had even rediscovered the wreckage of the B-36 Peacemaker bomber that had crashed in 1952 near Mission Beach. And by March 26, 2016, the boulders and the debris at the Blue Hole were removed enough so the divers could continue exploring and mapping the underwater cave system. Shane was originally instructed to stay behind at certain cave restrictions for safety, while another diver, Mike Young, would go into the caves first. Imagine being the guy first.
Right, God.
Leading the way.
So scary. And to make it clear, because this kind of confused me when I was researching this, is that the general concept, what I understand, is that they go down there, one guy follows like a safety line that they had set up, And you kind of go through these narrow tunnels and restrictions into the next chamber system. And then Shane would hang back all the way through the tunnel in the previous chamber, just in case, whatever was going wrong or whatever. So they would go first. And then if Mike needed to come back, he would just come back through the tunnel, communicate something with Shane if he needed to. But he was supposed to just hang back through these restrictions as more of like a safety,
right?
To make
Something
sure that Mike
happens,
was okay.
or all of a sudden a bunch of silt comes up, and he can then go get help.
Exactly,
which makes sense.
So kind of a buddy system, but he was always supposed to be hanging back. That's how I understand it.
Managing finances can feel complicated and time-consuming. It's something that we all have to do, but a lot of us just dread doing it. But with Rocket Money, this is an app that will truly change your financial game because it just makes it so easy to see exactly what's going on with your financials. You can add all of your accounts, your credit cards, whatever account it may be, all in one place. And through the dashboard, you can really get a good view of what you're spending. It gives you expense reports. It'll show you all the subscriptions you're paying for, which of course, most of us are paying for subscriptions we didn't even know about, but they make it really easy to go and get those subscriptions canceled. With the app, you can also create personalized budgets with custom categories that help keep your spending on track. So you can see your monthly spending trends every single month and adjust accordingly. You also get alerts if your bills increase in price, or if there's unusual spending, or if you're close to going over your budget. The new goals feature automatically saves money for you without you having to think about it. So whether your goal is to pay off credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money really makes it easy. Another great feature about Rocket Money is they'll even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. And they'll automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save, and then you can ask them to negotiate for you, and they'll deal with customer service for you. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel those unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. They have over 5 million users, and they have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. I've probably saved thousands using Rocket Money, and it's an app that I use absolutely every day. I love all the features that it has, and there's also some premium features that you can get that are well worth it, including credit monitoring, net worth, all these cool other features that come along with it. It's truly an app you'll use every single day. And they even have this great feature where you can pay what you think the app is worth. So it's really affordable for every single person out there, and it'll save you money in the long run. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/lightsout. That's rocketmoney.com/lightsout. rocketmoney.com/lightsout. So both men dove toward the entrance hole, and Shane wiggled through first. Mike followed just behind him. Both divers shined their high-powered flashlights in the cave as they followed a previously installed safety line. There's some great photos that kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here. But as they moved further into the cave, they quickly realized they had kicked up a bunch of silt that had settled to the bottom, so they couldn't see very far in front of them, which is a big problem because you don't know what you're swimming into. They slowly continued further into the system, and Shane soon identified a tunnel that branched off from the section they were in. Both divers looked down the tunnel, noticing an opening at the end, about 20 or 30 feet down, which opened into a larger cavern. But the tunnel they were looking through was somewhat large at the beginning, but it continuously narrowed down to a smaller point before opening up again. Mike entered first, and Shane was supposed to stay behind for safety as planned, but he followed directly behind Mike instead. And as they both swam down the tunnel, they kicked up even more silt, causing lower visibility. So as Shane looked ahead, it was difficult to see that the tunnel was narrowing the further they traveled into it, and Mike had already made his way through the smallest part. He then turned around to grab a camera from Shane, noticing that he had followed him back into the tunnel, which wasn't the plan, and he was like, dude, you need to go back. So he tells Shane to make his way back. But Shane, at this point, couldn't back himself up and came to a complete stop between the rocks. He didn't have enough forward momentum to make it through the narrow section of the tunnel, and after a few moments of trying to get through, the realization set in that he was trapped within the tunnel between the rock walls.
And picture everything with very low visibility.
Yeah.
So it's even hard to understand. Like, we don't actually know how much silt was up, but just assume there
enough
was
that-
quite a lot
yeah.
to cause confusion. And then you can imagine Mike coming back and being like, you need to go back. And Shane's like, I can't even see, so I'm not sure what's even happening.
Well, you can't even really look around to see where you're stuck or
Right, or what you're
what's
stuck against.
like how to even navigate out of that situation, which
Mhm.
is,
Yeah. So Mike, now face to face with Shane, didn't realize that Shane was stuck because silt had filled the tunnel. So he's like, what are you doing here? And can you go back? And he couldn't, but he tried to remain as calm as possible, and he braced himself to move backward, helping Shane along with him through the narrow tunnel. So now instead of Shane going backwards, Mike is helping him to get through into the next section so that he can turn around and
to
then
go
head
back through. Yeah.
So by now, unfortunately, Shane had begun to panic. He began kicking his legs, and even more silt was kicked up, and Mike did his best to slowly move backward to get both of them into the next larger area, like I said, so Shane could turn himself around and head back out. He eventually did get him through, and they both turned around with Shane heading back through first. And like before, they followed the safety line. Since there was nearly zero visibility, that was all they had to direct them back from where they came. But then Mike felt Shane like a big tug on the line. And since he couldn't really see forward, it's like, what's going on? All of a sudden, a hand reached out from within the dark tunnel that they were in. And Mike could tell by Shane's kind of rapid movements that he was in a full-blown panic at this time. Mike reached out to try to calm him. Shane basically pulled him closer, and both divers got stuck in this confined passageway, barely able to see anything, very confused on what's going on. And this is where there's just a fundamental concept in scuba diving. Probably a lot of us have heard this, like grace under pressure can save your life, because panic will kill you in possibly more ways than one. Most experienced divers have trained themselves, be laid back, especially while diving. If something happens, be patient, be calm. But even well-practiced divers can experience panic, especially when things go awry. And when panic sets in, you get this rapid, shallow breathing, which can cause hypoxia, which is not enough oxygen in the body's tissues, and a buildup of carbon dioxide. This can result in the diver acting irrationally, breathing faster, expelling their breathing regulator, and or bolting to the surface, which can cause decompression sickness, otherwise known as the bends. Panicking can also cause the diver to pass out, or in some circumstances, even have a heart attack if they have a weaker heart. Panicking also impedes the ability to problem solve. I mean, if you've ever really been in a panic situation,
you can't think straight.
No, you're completely out of it. Yeah, it also impedes the ability to get to safety, or, whether you're trapped or it's your equipment malfunctioning or something, you just can't think straight when you're panicking. And the National Underwater Accident Data Center attributes about 1/5 of diver deaths directly to panic. Even worse, sometimes panicking divers can end up killing their diving partners by accident. So at some point, the tether that had connected the two divers had also broken, and Shane pushed himself free from Mike because they were in this entanglement. They were kind of struggling because Shane's freaking out, and he had grabbed Mike, and he was able to free himself, and they scrambled through the passage. Shane also knocked one of Mike's flippers loose. He knocked a hose from his suit loose, and cold water had begun leaking into his scuba suit. So Mike recovered his flipper and waited for Shane to just come back, but he never did. So he headed into an opening to go find him, and through the silt and debris, he also found the safety line again, and as he touched it, he could feel that Shane was somewhere on this line. He didn't know where exactly, but somewhere in the distance. He could not see him. He managed to peek into the next cavern where there was more visibility, and as he shined his light around and scanned the cavern, Shane was still nowhere to be seen. He noticed there were several different passages Shane could have taken out of that section, and since this section of the cave system was not mapped, Mike had no idea where to go. He also noticed that the safety line where he could feel Shane had actually gone limp, meaning that Shane had either left the line or something worse had happened. So he weaved through the narrow tunnels, shining his light ahead of him, but there was no sign of Shane. As he continued through, he eventually did see Shane, and he was floating motionless in the water. As he slowly approached, Mike realized that Shane was dead, and this was about 160 feet below the surface. The theory was that when Shane began to panic, which disoriented him, he pushed himself further into the cave system because he actually might have thought he was making his way toward the exit, but got lost along the way. And as for his breathing regulator, they would later uncover the video of Shane's dive to analyze what had happened, and it showed that he had overloaded his breathing apparatus because he was panicking. Remember those like shallow, quick breaths? So he had switched to his emergency gas tank and then emptied it because he was breathing too fast. And then normally divers can actually switch back to the primary tank after using the secondary or the emergency one. But since he was in such a panic, he never switched it back. And this eventually caused him to drown. Mike realized there really wasn't enough time to recover Shane's body right then. Also, his suit was still leaking, and he also needed a couple of hours to decompress to get back to the surface because the bends, decompression sickness is a thing. So he found his way back to the exit, then resurfaced. He told everyone, including police, what had happened. And Mike later went back down to recover Shane's body the following day because he knew exactly where he was. The entryway into the cave system was again sealed off. To this day, no one is allowed to dive in the Blue Hole caves. Local government deemed it, quote, too perilous. As for the safer area of the Blue Hole, an underwater boulder broke off or reduced water flow earlier this year, causing several more rocks to fall. The swimming hole was closed in July 2024, but reopened in August 30th. The swimming hole was closed in July of this year, 2024, but reopened on August 30th, so even the swimming area seems a bit dangerous. But today, swimmers and divers, they are allowed access to the main area of Blue Hole, but the cave system down below is off limits indefinitely.
Which I think for good reason, man.
Yeah, I mean, also you think about it, those two previous divers that went down and lost their lives, and then now it was like a professional team with people who were experienced, and even they were running into problems. It's probably just safe just to cut this section off and not allow anyone to go down there ever again.
Yeah, I mean, send down a, like a little submersible device.
Right. Yeah.
Which, again, I'm sure like loses connection at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, is it worth it?
No. And they were trying to map this out to make it safe for cave divers. And, they couldn't even successfully do that. So it's probably for the best that this is closed off.
But I mean, who wouldn't panic in that situation? I would certainly panic. I'd probably just panic scuba diving. That's probably why I can't scuba dive, because I would just, see a shark and I'm screaming.
Oh, yeah.
I'm switching to the emergency.
Same.
Or swimming to the surface as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
It's like you really do have to have complete control of your mind, and probably takes a while to really get comfortable.
Yeah.
Being that far under the water.
Yeah. And even when you are, he had 20 plus years of diving experience. So like, even when you are very comfortable and you do it professionally,
I think if we're all faced with death, how many of us could stay completely calm,
right,
and maneuver our way out of the situation? And maybe he realized like there is no maneuvering my way out of this.
Damn. Yeah.
And yeah, it's terrifying, man.
Yeah.
Cave diving, no thank you.
My dad has an old scuba license. He used to live in the Houston, Galveston area of Texas. So it's big scuba divers out that way, but more like ocean-based scuba diving.
Yeah. I would do maybe like a reef that wasn't super deep.
Yeah.
That would be cool, because it would be really cool to see like a, living, breathing reef and it's all of its glory.
Yeah,
many.
I get to see one, and I was in the Cayman Islands. I went snorkeling, and I got to see this coral reef. Super. The amount of fish and different wildlife down there is mind-boggling, and it's crazy because I need to look up why. I can't really remember, but when you put your ears under the water, you can hear like this popping and crackling.
Yeah.
It's actually from the reef itself is like popping and crackling. But yeah, highly recommend if you ever get to go check out a reef.
Oh, I've
Go
been
do
to the
it.
Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, have you?
I've snorkeled the Great Barrier Reef, and it was very sad because it was completely bleached. The reef that they took us to, and I know there's probably we've like took a boat for over an hour to a part of the Great Barrier Reef, and we got in the water and it was like mostly bleached, and it was just like, wow,
That's sad.
and it was this was probably 6 years ago maybe, and so they were having like an especially bad bleaching event going on there. But yeah, it was very underwhelming because it was all bleached out. But they were saying that to see like because it was like shallow enough they could easily snorkel over it. Like I still saw some stuff, like it wasn't just like a barren wasteland, but it wasn't that vibrant colors that you would expect to see from the coral and stuff, because the coral's all bleached. So, and subsequently a lot of the life that lives within the coral and doesn't survive either.
Ugh,
so
sad.
they were saying that if you want to see something like that, you really do need to scuba dive the Great Barrier Reef to really see the
go down there.
And so I went and created my own reef in my house so I could have that experience
There you
every day
go.
that I don't have to scuba dive for. Because I love marine life. I love the ocean. I love, coral and anemones and all the creatures and stuff. But
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
But I've also had this like pretty long time fear of sharks, which is, I think I'm slowly kind of getting over, but it's always the idea that
I'm scared of sharks too. Yeah. I once saw a group of tarpon, which are like huge fish.
Yeah.
But at a distance, you could just see like their silhouette. I'm like, oh, that's a shark. I'm going to die. It was just a tarpon, but I also have a deep fear of sharks as well. The ocean in general is kind of scary for me.
I think it's just because we're out of our element.
Yeah.
It's the unknown.
Yeah.
We are naturally scared of it because we don't belong there.
Yeah. It's very humbling too.
It's very
to be like,
humbling.
anything can destroy me at any moment.
It's very humbling. But Thailand, I did some good snorkeling and saw some good healthy reefs and had like a barracuda swim right past me, which was pretty
that's
wild.
crazy.
Like with
Nice.
all of its teeth and stuff. I was like, whoa.
Cool.
So definitely seen some cool stuff. But
I saw a sea turtle one time
Oh.
off the coast of Maui. That was awesome.
and those are huge too.
Yeah.
In Hawaii.
That was fascinating. I've seen a bunch of nature documentaries, but once you actually get out there, it's right there in front of you.
Daniel did some snorkeling for the first time in Costa Rica.
Oh,
this
yeah?
summer.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that?
I don't like the ocean.
Yeah,
He got in and got right out. I've
I
never
did it.
seen you swim so fast.
I did it, but I am just not an ocean person.
It's pretty weird. And like the day that we went, the visibility wasn't super good. It was kind of overcast, so you couldn't really see very far down.
Oh, darn.
So that makes it a little bit creepier too when you're just looking down. It's just deep blue, dark
Nothingness.
water. And
Yeah.
I was also seasick,
Oh.
and I still decided to get in.
Dude,
did
God
you get-
bless this guy.
You took a boat to somewhere? Was
Dude,
that
how could I
what-
forget about that?
Oh, man.
He was so fucking sick, dude.
Oh.
He was blowing chunks
Oh.
everywhere.
What
I
a
was-
pussy.
Oh, it was no, it was
dude,
hilarious.
we were-
On the boat back, I was just hanging off the edge,
No,
just
literally.
blowing chunks, and Josh
Oh.
just took the boat hose and was just spraying me off as we were going.
It was bad, dude.
Oh.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody get that seasick before.
Oh,
bad.
that
Yeah.
sucks.
And then what else was going on with you?
I got
that-
sand in my eye. It was a bad day for me.
Of course, it was supposed to be. It was like the first time he was gonna go snorkeling, and it was a beautiful place that we went to in Costa Rica. But no, this guy, he starts off the journey because it was like a 4-hour excursion or whatever.
Yeah.
Starts off the journey. He's like, guys, I have something in my eyes all fucked up. He like can't
I
see.
can't open it.
Oh, my God, dude.
But then he still got in the water and snorkeled, and then came back, and then the way home just was brutal for him. He was
Oh, man.
'Cause it
Once I
was-
puked, though, great,
You felt better?
amazing, instantly.
Okay. That's good. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. You're not really a water dog.
God
over
did
there.
not want me to get in
No.
that water that day.
Yeah, it is funny because I don't know if you guys have ever seen Daniel. He's a large, fit man who's an animal in the ring. But it's kind of funny. You put him in a little bit of water and all of a sudden he dissolves. Yeah.
Yeah, those MMA skills don't translate to the ocean quite as well.
Yeah.
But
I want to go snorkeling again, though. Don't get me wrong.
Snorkeling is awesome.
I want to go again.
If you can do it where you don't have to get on a boat,
Now, even then,
ideal.
I want to do it again.
Okay.
I want to.
All right.
yeah, Mexico is a great place. We're going to Mexico over our holiday break with the family, and Mexico is a great place because they've got a lot of reefs not far off of the mainland, and they're very shallow. And if you get a good day, you can just like kind of glide right over the top of them, and
Yeah.
almost to the point where you're like, oh shit, is this gonna like hit me?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
They're so close to you.
it
Yeah.
gets kind of dicey at times. That's like, but it's really cool because the visibility is a lot better there.
Nice.
Water's a lot clearer. So yeah, we should try to do that, and then we'll
excited.
report back on our
yeah.
second time.
I
around.
love swimming. The ocean is scary.
It is. It's a scary place.
But this next one though, this is just like, how the fuck did this happen? This just doesn't even make any sense whatsoever.
No, this doesn't.
And this was within the last couple of years. You might even have heard about this one, but
It was just a month or two ago,
Yeah.
actually.
oh,
Very
that's right.
recent,
No,
yeah.
you're right. It was
Mhm.
literally this October.
Yeah.
So 19-year-old Gurismran Kaur moved from India to Nova Scotia with her mother in 2021. Her father and brother remained in India for the time being. She was described as a beautiful girl who came to Canada with big dreams, and she had formed a close relationship with the Maritime Sick Society. This is a community that supports and connects sick people, typically in coastal regions, which Austin just brought it to my attention because I'd always thought it was Sikh,
Yep.
was how you pronounced it, but it's sick.
We've said Sikh for like years and
Yeah.
years, but now they've just recently corrected it, and apparently it's pronounced sick.
Good to know. You learn
Yes.
something new every day.
Yep.
But Gursimran also ran a YouTube channel with over 100,000 subscribers, and many of her videos showcased her singing abilities. And for work, she eventually found a job at her local Walmart in Halifax in the bakery section. On October 19th, 2024, she went into work like she did any other day. And sometimes her mother, who also worked at the same Walmart for 2 years, would often check in with her daughter throughout the day. But when she hadn't seen her daughter for a long while, she thought something might be wrong. So she tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. And this is when, very close, she knew right away that something was very wrong, and she began to panic. It was unusual for her daughter to switch her phone off during the day, so she went to look for her. When she got to the bakery section, Gursimran was nowhere to be seen. And it wasn't until another employee noticed an odd substance on the floor coming from the nearby industrial oven in the bakery that they thought something was seriously wrong. Her mother then opened the oven door to find her daughter's charred remains inside, which is so horrific and traumatizing. And it's estimated that she might have been inside for at least an hour, possibly longer. So you've probably seen it if you've ever been to any real bakery section at a grocery store or Walmart. These are huge walk-in ovens, commercial ovens.
Yep.
So obviously, once they discovered her remains inside, the store remained closed until further notice, and an investigation was ongoing. A Walmart spokesperson gave a statement 4 days later on October 23rd saying, quote, "We are heartbroken and our deepest thoughts are with our associate and their family. Our focus remains on taking care of our associates and making sure they have the support they need. And police have stated that this is a very complex matter and the investigation is ongoing." According to reports, she died around 9 p.m. and emergency calls were made soon after. Police have only described the incident as a, quote, sudden death. They confirmed she was found inside the oven, but they claim their investigation might take a significant amount of time. It's unclear exactly what happened, but some report that the oven appliance used at this Walmart did not lock, which raised some disturbing questions about how exactly she died. There were some rumors that were spreading around suggesting that if the door didn't lock, then maybe someone might have blocked the door, put her in there, or she was possibly intentionally trapped inside. Some wondered whether there was a safety off switch inside the oven. Another Walmart employee at a different location showed how their industrial oven requires someone to push on the door from the outside to seal it shut. At another location, the door would have to be closed and locked from the outside, and allegedly during the call to emergency services, the caller claimed that Gursimran was locked inside. The Nova Scotia Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration issued a stop work order on October 22nd for the Walmart's bakery and the oven. The order was lifted 6 days later on October 28th after the oven was assessed and determined to have been operating as per manufacturer's requirements. Walmart told CBC last week that the oven was being removed from the store as part of a standard remodel program being implemented across the country. How about just because this horrible tragedy happened, and why would anyone want to work in or around an oven that killed somebody?
Right.
According to the most recent reporting, though, no foul play is suspected, and the case was closed on November 18th. Martin Cromwell, public information officer for Halifax Regional Police, said, quote, "We conducted several interviews, reviewed video footage, and worked very closely with our partners at Nova Scotia Department of Labor and Medical Examiner Service. We do not believe anyone else was involved in the circumstances surrounding the woman's death." As for her family, they are understandably absolutely devastated. I mean, this is just such a freak accident, and I mean, how does this even happen?
Yeah, right.
Her mother is currently seeking counseling, and it was last reported that the father and brother were trying to reach North America for her funeral service. And there was a GoFundMe set up by the Maritime Sex Society. Is there any ideas of what fucking happened?
So the police are a bit tight-lipped on...
Really? The police won't even talk about what's happened?
They're just saying no foul play, and that's basically that. Just an accidental death. But I still have questions. I don't understand how something like this could happen. Some people theorize maybe it was on and she had walked inside and then fell unconscious and just nobody saw her, but then it doesn't explain why the door was closed. There are just a lot of questions still out there.
And this is such a rare thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many people have died in industrial ovens before? A handful?
I can't imagine there's many.
I wonder if the families looked at suing this manufacturer of this oven or something, figuring out, because...
And I don't like they use the verbiage. What was it? Oven was assessed, determined to have been operating as per the manufacturer's requirements. And then Walmart was saying, oh, we're removing this oven from the store, but it's just part of a standard remodel program being implemented across the country.
Yeah.
But they're not saying it's not it's just a coincidence that this has happened and now we're removing these ovens. So I think there's something more going on here. I mean, I don't want to speculate, but I still have questions.
At 9 p.m., I assume she was doing starting closing duties perhaps, and maybe it turned on. You know what I mean? Maybe it accidentally turned on, because there's been other situations where people are doing maintenance on ovens and, they got trapped and then the ovens turned on by accident, they malfunctioned or something like that. Cause I'm just if she was baking, why on earth would she have gone in there?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. So maybe she was cleaning it or doing some possible maintenance in there. Maybe she had passed out because it was accidentally turned on. Someone noticed oh, that's weird. The oven doors cracked open. So they just shut it without really looking in there. Yeah. They said she was potentially in there for an hour.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So was there anything baking in there? Was she putting stuff in there? I mean, I've never really seen. Do we have a picture of the inside of one of these? What does it even look like in there?
I don't
Is
know
it just
if there's any. There are a bunch of people were speculating hardcore. So you can go on TikTok and see everyone, even other Walmart employees, opening up this door and showing you the ins and outs.
Yeah. I mean, it says police, they reviewed all the video footage and stuff, so they're able to determine that nobody put her in there.
Right.
Because obviously I think that's where all of our minds go at first is did someone this would be an absolutely insane
freak accident
or even murder.
Way to murder. Sure.
You know what I mean? This is just completely off the wall.
Yeah.
My guess, and this is just pure speculation, is that she was doing some type of like cleaning or maintenance, or, you know, just kind of winding down for the night. But again, I guess it would have been on earlier. She was found at night. So I don't know. Maybe she was pulling something out of it, the door shut. And I mean, something had to have malfunctioned, because the only other possibilities are somebody put her in there and then locked her in there, which that seems to be ruled out. She intentionally put herself in there, which doesn't seem to be any evidence to support that. But of course, people speculate that as well. Or something with this oven malfunction while she was servicing it or getting something out of it, and she got trapped in there.
And she, like, I could see her passing out from not realizing it was on or something like that. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Very odd and super strange. But yeah, I guess they ruled no foul play. So
yeah, well, I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see if anything else comes out around this. But it seems like they've already closed the case and just are
no
kind
foul
of chalking
play,
up to a
accident. Yeah.
freak accident.
Yeah.
And seems like something with the equipment. But oh man, that's just a horrible way to go, but a horrible thing, you know, to just even wrap your head around if you're a family. Like, what? But yeah, I mean, it's definitely happened before in other cases. But in the other cases I was looking at, the oven was on when somebody started maintaining it, and then they got trapped in it, and then the oven got cranked up. And as we've talked about, even with like pressure cookers, things like that, you know, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Oh God. But yeah, that's where we're gonna wrap up things here today. I mean, they're all absolutely horrible.
Yeah, things you would never really
just anything can happen at any time.
Anything, yeah.
We're all
hope we're not making people too paranoid out there.
Yeah, I know. God,
still go live your life and do your things. Just be safe, you know.
But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and I'm like, how do I end this?
yeah. Workplace accidents, though, terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially in a place, I don't know, Walmart seems like generally a safe place to be. I don't know. I don't know how something like this can happen, but anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, anything is definitely possible. But we're going to wrap up today's episode there. We appreciate you for joining us for another one, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, lights out, everybody.